One rookie running back I want to talk about, because I agree, I think Tutin's going to be one of our finalists. And I hate to do it because, producer Colin, it's going to make him happy. But Jaydon Blue, running back 43 with the Dallas Cowboys, does stand out to me. And I think the first thing that people will say here is, well, he's small. He's not a feature back type. Maybe he isn't a feature back type. That being said, Bucky Irving was 5'9", 192 pounds when he measured at the NFL Scouting Combine. And Jaydon Blue is 5'9", 196. So that doesn't mean that Jaydon Blue is Bucky Irving from a skill set perspective, but size-wise, we just saw a dude who maybe isn't necessarily the prototypical size at the NFL running back go ahead and have this season that we're outlining here as one of these great breakout seasons in Bucky Irving. Jaydon Blue also is in an unsettled backfield as well. They've got Javonte Williams. They've got Miles Sanders. Okay. I mean, and this looks like an ecosystem, Scott, that could take a big leap. They were, just in terms of EPA last year, they were 29th was the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, Dak Prescott got hurt, but they also weren't off to a great start when Dak was under center. I'm interested to see what Brian Schottenheimer does as the head coach and full-time play caller now, but they also brought in Clayton Adams from the Arizona Cardinals. They drafted Tyler Booker as the right guard. So with Adams coming over from the Arizona Cardinals to be the offensive coordinator, getting a promotion from their line coach, run game coordinator, and this is a big, badass offensive line of Cooper Beebe and especially Tyler Guyton take a step. I think the passing game is going to be good with George Pickens in the mix here. Checks a lot of boxes in terms of what we are looking for in Jaydon Blue as a late round sleeper.
Yeah, I'll sign off on Blue as a sleeper, but the problem I have with him is that, like, if you compare his final year of college with Irving, I mean, Irving had, I think, like 75 more touches in that neighborhood with one fewer game. Blue was always a rotational guy at Texas, yes, undersized, right, had a little bit of a fumbling problem. And I do think the shape of the obviously he doesn't have much to beat out. They have such ordinary veterans in front of him. I also think Dallas has a chance, despite having Micah Parsons. I think the defense could be mediocre. And if Dak can stay healthy, and that's been a problem for the last few years, yeah. But if Dak's healthy, man, obviously CeeDee Lamb is a god. If they can just get George Pickens to accept that he's not the number one guy, if he can live as the number two, I could see real carnival potential with the Cowboys. And maybe Dak has one of those seasons where he throws 650 or 70 passes, 700 passes, and Blue could be the guy who makes a lot of sense as a pass catcher, as a hurry up back, that type of thing. So I could see him being very useful. I just don't see the path for him ever being a workhorse. I don't even want to say bell cow, because there's like 2 or 3 bell cows in the league now. Right. And that's kind of a dead thing. But to me, it's like, is Jaydon Blue going to be 10 to 13 touches, or can he get up to that like 15 to 17, 16 to 18 touch? I just don't know that he has the body type and the resume to handle that threshold. So that means I can't put him as a finalist on my clipboard, but I think he's very draftable, because I think Dallas is, I see a lot of 33-30 football coming with Dallas, and I think Jaydon Blue's skill set will fit well, and he'll be, again, as like kind of like, that Sigmund Bloom, what the heck flex. I think we'll be saying that with Jaydon Blue a few times this year.
Yeah, he was much more productive as a receiver. And I think that's where he'll have some fantasy value this year. Because if he gets on the field, I think it's going to be in passing situations where, again, he was very productive as a receiver in college. So I think he probably doesn't necessarily fit the bill here in terms of this year's Bucky Irving. But there's a lot of overlaps with the situation, with some of the things I outlined. It's just, is he as good as a runner as Bucky Irving? Probably not. Even if people do think he can play above his size, that's sort of where I think the comparison ends, and that's a pretty critical part to the whole thing. But I agree with Scott. He's probably not a finalist, but certainly someone that I do want our listeners to be drafting in the late rounds, because it's an unsettled backfield. And if he has passing down value, he's going to have some value in fantasy, especially if he, just beats out one of these veterans like Javonte Williams or Miles Sanders, for some of those passing down touches. But I want to throw these two other, go ahead.
So I'll throw out one more thing. I was talking to my buddy Chris, who's a really good fantasy player, the other day, and he was looking for an underrated possible stack. I just want to throw this out there. This just really has nothing to do with our conversation today, but we settled on Dak Prescott with one of the receivers and one of the pass catchers in Dallas as kind of the underrated stack that you might be able to get at an affordable cost. I just want to throw that out there as something that I'm interested in.
I'm getting really high on George Pickens this season, man. I just got finished charting him for reception perception. There were some times last year where he was so good. There was the usual George Pickens BS, where everybody knows the George Pickens experience, but I really do think he took a step as an individual player last year. It was really hot and heavy in the first part of the year, and then ironically he had that terrible game against his now current team, the Dallas Cowboys, where it was just a lot of like loafing and just again the George Pickens experience. But man, if he's dialed in, he's locked in, I feel like he could have a T. Higgins type season, where he is the number 2 receiver on an offense that's throwing the ball all over the yard, and he just wins a lot of those like X receiver plays, and he could score double-digit touchdowns this year. So yeah, I do think that obviously, like, can you get CeeDee Lamb on your fantasy team is going to come down to where you're drafting in the damn first round. But George Pickens could be a guy who I still think at this point, like, he's currently not going in the top 30 receivers. I do wonder if he's going to be one of these hype bunnies in the offseason. Actually, excuse me, he just crossed into like wide receiver 29. I do wonder if he's going to be one of these hype bunnies in the offseason because he's already had a good mini camp. The Cowboys love to talk about themselves. Pickens is a very easy player to like in practices because he makes these crazy catches. Could he end up climbing ahead of some of these names that we have here? Certainly. But I do want to be like proactive on getting Pickens on some fantasy teams this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't even mind having Prescott and Jake Ferguson. And I hope that this wide receiver trade, this Pickens trade, turns out better than the Jonathan Mingo trade.
Shoot, I hope it turns out better. I hope it turns out better. Well, shoot, that's a low bar to clear. I hope it turns out better for a lot of like former Steelers that go elsewhere. Let's hope it turns out better than the Deontay Johnson trade. Let's hope that George Pickens isn't playing for the Texans during the playoffs or
the crazy career that JuJu Smith-Schuster has given us. Man, JuJu Smith-Schuster used to be the man. He'd be like a first or second round pick. It just feels like 100 years ago.
Yep, I remember fighting the JuJu Smith-Schuster wars where I was a big loser and then kind of a big winner. So that's the way teams go. That's the way things go, man.